Urgent, Vikings fan! Look at what just happened! Nobody saw this coming, huh? But first, make sure to subscribe to the channel because we bring you daily videos with the latest your team news, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss anything.
Vikings cut cornerback they acquired in Andrew Booth Jr. trade last year. Nahshon Wright is a former third-round pick who will now be looking for another NFL opportunity. The Vikings have released cornerback Nahshon Wright, the team announced on Monday. He was acquired from the Cowboys in a trade for Andrew Booth Jr. last August, spent the season on Minnesota's practice squad, and then signed a reserve futures contract in January. The Booth for Wright swap hasn't paid dividends for either team, which was always the most likely outcome. At the time, it was a trade of former Day 2 draft picks who hadn't panned out, but might theoretically have some upside with a change of scenery. Wright, a third-round pick by Dallas out of Oregon State in 2021, averaged fewer than 100 defensive snaps per season over his first 3 years in the league, also seeing time on special teams. After being traded to the Vikings, he was cut after training camp and stuck around on the practice squad. The 6'4", 200-pound Wright is a massive corner who will now be looking for another NFL opportunity. He's 26 years old. Booth, who the Vikings took in the second round in 2022, played 118 defensive snaps for Dallas last season and really struggled. His 35.6 PFF grade ranked 153rd out of 156 corners to play at least 100 snaps in 2024. He also spent time on the practice squad, and he remains on the Cowboys roster at the moment. Booth was viewed as a high-upside pick when the Vikings took him 42nd overall 3 years ago, but injuries and poor play have kept his career from taking off. He saw roughly 250 snaps in 2 seasons with Minnesota. Releasing Wright has a minimal impact on the Vikings' salary cap due to the top 51 rule. It doesn't come with any dead money. It's an interesting move, mostly because it's early April and the Vikings aren't anywhere close to the 90-man off-season roster limit. Maybe they think cutting him now before the draft and OTAs will give him a better chance to latch on with another team. The Vikings currently have 10 cornerbacks on their roster: Byron Murphy Jr., Isaiah Rodgers-Makey, Blackmon Jeff Okudah, Taviere Thomas Dwight McLaughlin Najee, Thompson Ambry Thomas Reddy, Stewart Califf, Halassi Jack Jones, who was officially released by the Raiders on Monday, is an intriguing name to monitor. Pausing this news just to say that if you want YouTube to keep recommending the latest Vikes news to you, it's very important that you leave a like on this video. Thanks. Now let's get back to the news. Former Colts QB encouraged to sign with NFC. North playoff contender, the Minnesota Vikings, were at an apparent crossroads heading into the offseason. They had a magic carpet ride of a regular season in which they won 14 games and just barely missed out on getting the #1 seed in the NFC. Rookie quarterback J.J. McCarthy was expected to be the starter, but a torn ACL in the 2024 preseason thrust veteran Sam Darnold into the role. With minimal expectations, the former San Francisco 49ers backup shocked the world by playing close to an MVP level with 35 touchdowns to just 12 interceptions. Heading into Week 18's battle with the Detroit Lions for the 1 seed, Darnold was expected to get a massive contract rivaling the highest-paid quarterbacks in the NFL. But unfortunately for Minnesota, the former 3rd overall pick crumbled under the first pressure he faced all season and laid an egg in Detroit, squandering home field advantage. Over the final 2 weeks of the season in Week 18 and the wildcard round of the playoffs, Darnold averaged just barely over 200 yards passing. On 53 completion, he threw just 1 touchdown in the 2 games to 1 interception, and the meltdown led to his exit from Minnesota. Although McCarthy is expected to make a full recovery, the Vikings have still been linked and speaking to multiple quarterbacks. In free agency, they are comfortable moving forward with the second-year signal caller, but after winning 14 games, Minnesota sees that they can become true contenders with a veteran at the helm. They had a brief flirtation period with legendary Green Bay Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers, but that ship has sailed. Bleacher reports Christopher Knox gave his pick of one free agent that can still help every team, and there is another veteran quarterback he thinks the Vikings should consider. Knox thinks Minnesota should take a long, hard look at ex-Indianapolis Colts backup Joe Flacco. The Baltimore Ravens legend has proved over the past few seasons that he can step in and start whenever the situation calls for it. He didn't have the most impressive season last year, but still provided the Colts passing game with a much-needed spark in most of his appearances.
It's highly unlikely that Flacco would start for the Vikings, but he's about as good of a backup option as you can find in the event of another McCarthy injury. If Minnesota wants a high-quality insurance plan in case of an emergency, then they should look no further than the former Super Bowl champion. Top Vikings free agent eyeing reunion with NFC rival. The Minnesota Vikings have been riding a cornerback carousel for 5 years. Since the departures of Trey Waynes and Xavier Rhodes in the 2020 offseason, the Vikings have not had the same starting cornerback duo return for consecutive seasons. But out from under the cap constraints of Kirk Cousins' contract, Minnesota has made moves to bring continuity to the position. They signed Byron Murphy Jr. and Philadelphia Eagles cornerback Isaiah Rodgers to multi-year deals to join Mekhi Blackmon under his rookie contract through the 2026 season. The odd man out from the 2024 cornerback group is former Pro Bowl corner Shaquill Griffin, who is one of the top free agents still available. Griffin appears to be closing in on his next home in the NFL after playing over 500 snaps last season, taking a visit to an NFC rival.
Fox Sports' Jordan Schultz reported on April 7th that the Griffin is visiting the Seattle Seahawks, the team that drafted him in the third round of the 2017 NFL Draft. One of the top free agents still available, Griffin appeared in 17 games for the Vikings last season, totaling 41 tackles, 2 INTs, and 6 pass deflections. Schultz wrote in a post on X, formerly Twitter, sources former Pro Bowl CB Shaquill Griffin is set to visit the Seahawks today. One of the top free agents still available, Griffin appeared in all 17 games for the Vikings last season, totaling 41 tackles, 2 INTs, and 6 pass deflections. Pictats Twitter. ComK3UTJOTKWVE Jordan Schultz. Report April 7th, 2025. The fact that Griffin remains a free agent is a sign that the Vikings have moved on. He lived up to his 1-year, $55 million contract, also earning $250,000 in performance bonuses for playing 50 of defensive snaps last season. He is an affordable veteran option and was also named to the Pro Bowl in 2019. However, at this stage of his career and the Vikings' timeline, they may be exploring other options in the draft instead. Minnesota also signed former Detroit Lions first-round pick Jeff Okudah report Aaron Rodgers' possibility all but dead for the Minnesota Vikings, another signal that Minnesota is comfortable moving forward with J.J. McCarthy at quarterback. Like a mail carrier, we show up at your door almost every day of the week, and sometimes the things we drop off are junk. In Vikings land, the equivalent to junk mail are stories about Aaron Rodgers. Today's junk comes from ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, who said on SportsCenter Sunday that Minnesota considers the Rodgers possibility all but dead at this point in the offseason. The Minnesota Vikings, is Rodgers waiting them out? That is sort of a lingering question out there, but when I talk to people with the Vikings, this is all but dead for them, essentially, Fowler said. Maybe if he's available later in the summer. They would revisit, but that just seems unlikely at this point, so it's Steelers, retirement or bust. Fowler is hearing that the Steelers remain optimistic that Rodgers will sign with them in the near future, while NFL Network's Ian Rappaport pointed out Monday that the Steelers would prefer to know before draft, so they're not feeling pressure to select a quarterback with a high draft pick. For what it's worth, Rappaport said the Vikings are moving full steam ahead with McCarthy, which is another signal that the Rodgers junk mail will stop coming to Minnesotans' doors in the very near future. And now, Vikings fan, I want to hear from you. What's your opinion on this? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I don't know if you know this, but your opinion matters a lot for Vikes. I'll be back any moment with more Vikings news. Skol, Vikings.